There comes a point in every powerful woman's life when she simply stops explaining herself. Not out of arrogance, not of defiance, but out of clarity. I reached that moment quietly. I didn't slam the door. I didn't scream. I didn't post a manifesto on social media. I just stopped justifying my choices to people who never really cared to understand them in the first place. For years, I believed I owed the world an explanation. I explained why I wasn't married yet, why I chose a career over comfort, why I walked away from toxic friends, why I spoke up, why I stayed silent, why I forgive, why I didn't. I gave away pieces of myself trying to convince people that my decisions were acceptable, reasonable, digestible. But what I learned is this: people will twist your truth to fit their narrative if it threatens theirs. And when you start living outside their expectations, they don't want understanding, they want control. I remember the day I decided to stop explaining. A friend asked me why I was distant lately, why I wasn't showing up like I used to. I typed out a long paragraph about burnout, personal healing, setting boundaries, being overwhelmed, and then I erased it because she already knew. She just didn't like that my priorities had changed. That was the day I realized, if your healing offends someone, it means they benefited from your brokenness. I stopped explaining because I finally understood that silence is not weakness. It's wisdom. And not everyone deserves a front row seat to your transformation, and most certainly not everyone deserves a copy of your blueprint. Especially those who only show up when they feel entitled to your energy. The moment I stopped over-explaining, I got my time back, my peace back, my voice. It was as if I'd been handing out backstage passes to people who didn't even clap when I was center stage. I had to remind myself, your boundaries do not require permission. Your path does not need validation. You're not cold for protecting your peace. You're not rude for choosing yourself. You're not selfish for not wanting to carry what was never yours to hold. People say things like, she's changed, or she's distant now. But they don't say how they drained you, how they disappeared when you needed support, how they expected you to always be available but never be exhausted. That part they leave out. So no, I don't explain anymore. If I say no, that's a full sentence. If I leave the room, I'm not running, I'm reclaiming space. If I don't respond, it's not shade, it's protection. Energy is a currency, and I no longer spend mine trying to buy approval from people who were never invested in my well-being. Because here's what they don't tell Yug: the moment a woman stops explaining herself, she becomes dangerous. Not in a destructive way, but in a liberated way. A woman who no longer needs your applause. She's unshakable. She doesn't bend to make others comfortable anymore. When a woman starts living on her own terms, she threatens everything that tried to keep her small. Tradition, expectation, guilt, control. She becomes the version of herself she was always afraid to beg. Direct, honest, intentional. You want to level up? Stop negotiating your identity in rooms that never saw your worth. Stop pausing your progress to give people directions to a destination they never planned to visit with you. Stop asking, is this okay, before honoring what you know is right. People talk. Let them. They'll call you selfish for not being self-sacrificial. They'll call you arrogant for being confident. They'll say you've changed. Good. You weren't supposed to stay the same. Growth demands distance. Healing demands solitude. And purpose demands clarity. Clarity doesn't beg to be accepted. It simply stands tall and moves forward. I still get tempted to explain sometimes, especially to the people I once loved, once trusted. But then I remind myself, I don't owe anyone the version of me that makes them feel better about staying the same. That's not my job. My job is to protect what I've built, to nurture what I've learned, to walk in alignment, not apology. I don't live for likes, validation, or group consensus. I live for peace, for freedom, for truth. And truth doesn't stutter. It doesn't water itself down. It doesn't pause to see who's offended. So if you're still explaining yourself, stop. Let them misunderstand you. Let them gossip. Let them twist your story. You don't need to clean up a version of yourself they've already decided to misread. Just live. Unapologetically, authentically, audaciously. The woman who doesn't explain. She doesn't lose sleep over opinions she never asked for. She doesn't shrink to fit someone else's comfort zone. She walks tall, not because she's above anyone, but because she finally knows she doesn't belong beneath anyone either. That woman is me. And if you're ready, that woman can be you too. I used to be addicted to being liked. It sounds harmless, doesn't it? Wanting to be liked, wanting people to speak well of you, wanting approval, applause, validation. I told myself it was normal. It meant I was kind, thoughtful, easy to be around. But the truth is, it was exhausting. I was performing, smiling when I was hurting, saying yes when I wanted to say no, laughing at things that weren't funny, carrying guilt that didn't belong to me. I was bending into every shape except the one that was actually mine. And for what? So people would say I'm nice. No one tells you how much peace you lose trying to please people who wouldn't even notice if you disappeared. No one tells you that choosing popularity is often just choosing to be a watered-down version of yourself, polished, palatable, predictable. But something in me broke the day I realized my peace was the price I was paying for their approval. It happened slowly. I started declining invitations I would force myself to go to. I stopped answering calls that drained me. I stopped apologizing for not being available to everyone at all times. At first I felt guilty. Then I felt free. Because here's what I learned: popularity doesn't protect your peace. In fact, it often destroys it. The more people I tried to impress, the less I recognized myself. My worth became external. My joy became situational. My voice got quieter, my boundaries got blurrier, and my soul got tired. So I walked away. I chose peace. And I know what that sounds like. It sounds lonely. It sounds selfish. But it's not. It's the most powerful act of love you can give yourself. Choosing to protect your energy, your sanity, your spirit. When you choose peace over popularity, everything changes. You start to enjoy your own company again. You wake up without that pit in your stomach, wondering who you disappointed this time. You stop editing yourself mid-sentence to keep the room comfortable. You stop negotiating your worth with people who only value you when you're useful to them. And yes, you lose people. The people who only loved the version of you that served their needs will say you've changed. They'll call you distant, cold, arrogant. That's fine. Let them. Because they're right. You have changed. You've remembered that your peace is not up for negotiation. The thing is, popularity is loud, but peace is sacred. Popularity wants the stage. Peace wants the truth. Popularity feeds your ego. Peace feeds your soul. You have to ask yourself, do I want to be admired by strangers or respected by myself? I stopped needing to be in the room. I stopped needing the invite. I stopped explaining my decisions to people who were only ever invested in my silence. I learned that boundaries are a form of self-respect, not self-isolation. That saying no without explanation is a full sentence. That choosing rest isn't laziness. That going unnoticed can sometimes be the greatest blessing, because when you're not busy trying to be seen, you finally get to see yourself. I started to love the quiet. I started to love being unknown in a world obsessed with being followed. I started to love being misunderstood because it meant I was finally being honest. And most of all, I started to love myself without needing permission. Choosing peace over popularity means some doors will close. But the ones that stay open, those are real. The people who remain, they're the ones who see you, not just what you do for them. They don't need the performance. They love your presence. So no, I don't show up everywhere anymore. I don't post every opinion. I don't chase trends or try to stay relevant. My peace is my platform now. My joy is my protest. My stillness is my strength. I've outgrown the version of me that begged to be liked. She was afraid. She believed she had to earn love by being agreeable. But the woman I am now, she's grounded, she's clear. She doesn't need the spotlight to feel seen. She doesn't need noise to feel important. She knows her value, even when it's invisible to others. And if that makes me less popular, so be it. Because peace is not the absence of chaos. It's the presence of clarity. And once you find it, you stop trading it for anything. So to the woman still trying to be everything to everyone, I see you. I was you. But you don't have to live there forever. You can choose differently. You can choose stillness over applause, wholeness over attention. You can choose peace. And when you do, you won't be loud about it. You won't need to be. Peace speaks for itself. I used to think loyalty meant staying, no matter what. Staying in friendships that drained me. Staying in rooms where I was only half welcome. Staying quiet so others could feel comfortable. I was loyal to everyone, except myself. And I wore that as a badge of honor. The loyal one. The ride or die. The always there friend. I thought that made me strong. But I was wrong. Because somewhere along the way, I realized I was betraying myself just to keep the peace. I was loyal to people who only loved the version of me that didn't ask for much. I was loyal to dysfunction, to history, to guilt. And the truth, that kind of loyalty isn't noble. It's self-abandonment. So I had to redefine it. I had to ask myself, what if loyalty starts here, with me? It was uncomfortable at first. The kind of uncomfortable that shakes you awake. I started to notice how often I said, Yes. When my body was screaming, no. How I made excuses for people who kept hurting me. How I defend someone privately just so I wouldn't be seen as disloyal, when deep down, I was tired of carrying people who never once carried me. I realized I had been confusing loyalty with martyrdom. Real loyalty doesn't mean you destroy yourself to keep others comfortable. Real loyalty doesn't mean you ignore your own needs to protect someone else's image. And real loyalty definitely doesn't mean you stick around when your soul is starving. So I chose myself, not in a selfish way, in a necessary way, in a way that finally made sense. I stopped pledging allegiance to people who disappeared the moment I needed something real. I stopped defending behavior that would never defend me. I stopped showing up out of obligation and started showing up with intention. And yes, it cost me. People don't like it when you stop prioritizing their comfort. They call you selfish, disloyal, they'll say you've changed, and they're right. I stopped making myself small just to keep relationships big. I stopped bleeding just to prove I wouldn't leave. I started being loyal to my growth, my peace, my future. That meant ending some friendships. It meant creating distance where there used to be codependency. It meant choosing solitude over fake connection. But you know what it also meant? It meant finally having space to breathe, to feel, to be. Because when you stop betraying yourself, everything shifts. You stop begging for reciprocity. You stop waiting for people to become who they promised they'd be. You stop writing love letters to situations that keep tearing you apart. You become your own safe place, your own constant, your own standard. I became loyal to the woman I was becoming. And that woman, she was done begging, she was done shrinking, she was done apologizing for needing more. She was done proving she was worth staying for. She started walking away when it no longer felt right. She started listening to her gut instead of guilt. She started saying, "This doesn't serve me anymore," and meaning it. No rage, no drama, just clarity. And that clarity is what makes a woman powerful. Because when a woman becomes loyal to herself, she becomes dangerous to every system that benefited from her silence. She becomes immune to manipulation. She starts choosing truth over tradition, boundaries over blind allegiance, growth over guilt. Letting go wasn't easy, but it was worth it. I stopped choosing people who only chose me when it was convenient. I stopped over-explaining why I couldn't show up for things that made me feel hollow. I stopped fighting for connections that left me drained, and I stopped calling that love. Now I ask different questions. Does this friendship nourish me? Does this connection align with who I'm becoming? Do I feel safe, seen, and valued here? If the answer is no, I bless it and let it go, because that's what real loyalty looks like. It's not about staying. It's about standing. Standing for yourself. Standing in your truth. Standing firm in the fact that you matter too. I no longer measure loyalty by how much pain I can endure. I measure it by how deeply I honor my own voice. That shift changed everything. I stopped feeling guilty for choosing what felt right. I stopped romanticizing relationships that only worked when I was suffering. I stopped trying to rescue people who weren't even asking to be saved. I became the kind of woman who shows up for herself first. So that when she shows up for others, it's not from resentment, but from wholeness. And that's the most radical kind of loyalty there is. So if you're the woman who's always been the strong one, the loyal one, the one who never walks away, I get it. But you deserve more than a seat at a table where you're barely fed. You deserve more than relationships that require you to abandon yourself to keep them alive. You deserve your own loyalty. Because the moment you give it to yourself, your entire world begins to shift. And the peace that follows, it's not just healing, it's holy. I used to think I had to be loud to be powerful, that I had to clap back, prove a point, show up in every room like a storm. I thought I had to be heard to be respected, that silence meant weakness and quiet meant irrelevance. But then something shifted. I stopped wasting energy trying to be seen, and I started focusing on being effective. I realized the strongest women aren't always shouting the loudest. They're the ones too focused to waste time proving they're strong. That's when I learned power isn't about volume, it's about direction. I became quiet, not because I had nothing to say, but because I no longer needed validation. I didn't need to convince people to respect me. I didn't need to explain my boundaries, my choices, or my path. My presence started speaking before I even opened my mouth. There's a kind of peace that comes when you stop chasing recognition, when you stop performing strength and start embodying it. My confidence stopped being loud. It became still, steady, focused. I used to argue to be understood. Now, I let the misunderstanding rest. Because I'm not here to be decoded, I'm here to live in alignment. And not everyone has the capacity to understand that. There was power in my restraint, in walking away from drama, in not reacting when they expected me to explode, in letting silence answer what words no longer needed to. People started asking if something was wrong. No, something was right. For the first time, I wasn't leaking energy. I wasn't over-explaining, over-apologizing, overextending. I was focused on peace, on purpose, on progress. And when a woman becomes focused, she becomes dangerous to the systems that relied on her distraction. I stopped showing up to arguments that didn't serve me. I stopped debating people who had already made up their minds. I stopped trying to win over people who weren't even rooting for me. That shift didn't make me cold. It made me clear. Clear about who I was. Clear about what I was building. Clear about what no longer deserved my attention. I started building in silence, healing in private, moving with intention. My life stopped being a performance and started becoming a statement. A quiet one. The woman who yields has been pushed too far. The woman who's quiet has figured out she no longer needs to raise her voice, because her results speak louder than any words ever could. I became that woman, the one who didn't need to be liked to be respected, the one who walked away from fake support, the one who chose peace even if it meant being misunderstood, because focus costs you comfort. It costs you popularity, it costs you small talk and surface level relationships, but it gives you your life back. I started saying no without a paragraph of justification. I started protecting my energy like it was sacred, because it is. I stopped pouring into things that drain me, and I started showing up for myself in ways I never had before. And people noticed, not because I was louder, but because I was unshakable. You want to confuse people. Heal. You want to intimidate people. Focus. You want to become unstoppable. Get quiet and execute. The old me reacted. The leveled up me reflects. The old me explained. The new me evaluates. I'm no longer accessible to chaos. Because here's the truth: loud power gets attention. Focused power builds empires. So no, I'm not yelling anymore. I'm not fighting for space in rooms that never saw my value. I'm not wasting breath trying to be understood by people committed to misunderstanding me. Instead, I'm investing every ounce of my energy to becoming her, the version of me that's healed, that's free, that's in control of her time, her mind, and her spirit. You don't need to scream to be seen. You don't need to fight to prove your worth. When you're focused, your life becomes your loudest statement. So now, I let my silence do the talking. I let my actions preach louder than any post or opinion. I let my peace be my protest. That's the kind of power no one can take from me. Because it's not performative. It's internal. It's disciplined. It's grounded. And when a woman gets grounded in herself, when she becomes too focused to be shaken, there's nothing louder than that.